presidential elections of the Uganda Law Society. Apologies that we're starting a few minutes late, as we've had to make sure that a few things are in order. To quickly introduce myself, my name is Moses Moases, chairperson of the Uganda Law Society Elections Committee, and I'm flanked by my counterparts, Mr. Sam Kiriahe, who is a vice chairperson, and on my left-hand side, Mr. Albert Collins Cheyune. We would like to jump right into the debate after having lost a few minutes, but perhaps I would like to start by thanking our online audience for making time to tune in. We have 3 presidential candidates. They're going to introduce themselves. For now, we have 2 here. We cannot see the third just yet. We hope that he'll join us in due course. And I think my role is to quickly introduce our moderators, who are 2, a lady and a gentleman. Starting with the lady, Mrs. Rukshana Chitaka. She's a corporate communications and reputation management specialist with over 20 years of experience as a senior news anchor at NBS Television and NTV Uganda. She's an experienced moderator of panel discussions on corporate and social issues, but has also received several accolades for her work. And if I could list some of these: 2023 Honorary Vine Media Impact Award, 2-time winner of the Radio and TV Academy's Outstanding English News TV Anchor Award, 2-time winner of the Media Challenges Rosemary Nankabira Best Female TV News Anchor Award. She's also a celebrated podcaster of the Chitaka podcast and also the co-author of The Woman's Bait, which is a book. She's also the co-founder of Audacity Studios, a content creation company. Rukshana is very passionate about the power of communication and the media as tools for influencing social change. So that's one of our moderators. She's a very well-known TV personality. Our second moderator is Mr. Oscar Semuea Musoke. I think many of you may recognize him from hosting the Capital Gang. But Oscar, who likes to call himself Musomesa, for many of us who watch the Capital Gang, is a senior teacher, a principal and educationist. He was worked in nearly all mainstream media, print, TV, and now radio, as I indicated, with the Capital Gang. I wish I could ask you to put your hands together, but since you're online, maybe you can put your hands together electronically to welcome our moderators. Once again, thank you, colleagues, for joining the spaces and on Zoom, and we hope and trust that you'll have an enjoyable time as we listen to what our candidates have to say. I'd like to stop here and hand over to our moderators. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to everyone that's joining us. We are coming to you live from the Fairway Hotel right here in Kampala, 10 days before the much anticipated Uganda Law Society general election. Welcome to everyone that's joining us online on X Spaces and on Zoom worldwide. So this is the second and possibly final debate organized by the ULS Election Committee. And for the avoidance of doubt, there are still 3 presidential contestants: Isaac Atukunda, Mr. Kenneth Kipalu, Mr. Isaac Semakade, even though in the room right now we have only 2. And over the next 3 hours, each of them will get a chance to make their case to their voters. And hopefully by the time we're done, you as the voters will be certain beyond reasonable doubt who the best man for the job is. Good afternoon, I'm Rukshana Chitaka, and Mr. Oscar Semuea Musoke and I will co-moderate the debate this afternoon. Oscar is joining us online from the Far Eastern region, and our job today is pretty simple, I would like to believe. We will facilitate the debate between the two candidates present, who Oscar will introduce shortly. Of course, we implore the candidates to maintain the decorum expected of them and to keep the rules of the debate. And without much further ado, I shall just quickly go through the rules of the debate. Equal speaking time. Each candidate is going to be allocated equal time to present their views and respond to the questions. The different questions have different times, and we'll let them know what that is. Each response or statement will have a clearly defined time limit, and we request the candidates to respect when we do call out the need for timekeeping. As moderators, we commit to remaining neutral and not express opinions on any issues. Our role is simply to manage time and ask balanced questions. The debate is obviously going to cover a range of relevant issues because we are aware that there are quite a number of issues, and we have made sure that we have clear questions provided to each candidate so that they can actually articulate themselves on the different issues of concern. We appeal to the candidates to focus on policy and not personality. Stick to the issues, please. And then you will have an opportunity for rebuttal. You have a right to respond, obviously. And if your position or actions are directly referenced by another, you will be allowed a brief rebuttal if you request for that. That will ensure that all of you can clarify your positions. I'd just like to invite Oscar to take us through the remaining rules before he introduces the candidates. Over to you, Oscar.
Thank you very much, Jana. Oscar Semenya again. I am actually looking forward. Jana has taken us through some of them to finish off. And fact checking. Just pick up on what you said. It's limited rebuttal time. For example, if you wish to comment on questions that we ask, take your time. Just be aware. If possible, debate should include a neutral fact check by candidates. Very important. Members in audience, they want to be great. Audience interference while candidates are speaking out. Schools shouldn't be around. Only be around. Limited participation. Formats which actually moderated, and the question is concise, respectful. Clear guidelines on visual aids. Candidates will not be allowed to use physical copies of visual aids unless previously agreed upon. And I'm not so sure that we've agreed on anything. This prevents theatrics from overshadowing substantive debate. Prepared notes can be used, but lengthy speeches. There will be time deductions for penalties. Example, interrupting excessively. That's one of them. There will be clear consequences. Let me read this. Candidates should be aware of the consequences of violation ahead of a debate, whether it's a formal warning, reduced speaking time, or disqualification. Clear, fair, and transparent criteria should be set for candidates to qualify participation in this debate. While reasonable criteria should be applied, efforts should be made to ensure that diverse range of candidates, including other parties, have a fair chance to participate. I will occasionally switch off my video so that I have better sound clarity. And as we go into the first stage, I'll switch off the video now. and I will ask each candidate to respond. Thank you, gentlemen, potential presidents of the Uganda Law Society. With no particular order, you introduce yourself in 3 minutes. Shana, could you time it? And if possible, introduce yourself in any way you can, bits of your manifesto in 3 minutes. Would like to go first? If you're the one, please begin.
Thank you, Oscar. I'd just like to invite our candidates, presidential candidates, to please take their seats. And as you take your seats, the order in which you will take questions is going to be subject to a raffle. Yes, the raffle material is coming to you. So whichever position you pick will be the position or the position that you will respond to questions. They're right there. No, he just brought them right there. So you can just tell me who's number 1 and who's number 2 so we know who will be going first. Number 2. So that's Mr. Kenneth Kipalu, and that's number 2. Okay. So please introduce yourselves. Good afternoon and you're welcome.
Okay.
Please introduce yourselves. And your introduction basically should be your manifesto as well. And you have 3 minutes to do that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, land colleagues who are online. I want to thank the EC for organizing this debate. My name is Atkunda Isaac. I am the managing partner of Credo Advocates, and I'm also the outgoing Honorary Secretary of the Uganda Law Society. I have an experience of over 17 years in management. I have worked at Kampala International University as a faculty administrator, faculty of law, from 2007 up to 2013, while I was also a teaching assistant. From Kampala International University, I started Credo Advocates, where I'm the managing partner. I also have other business interests, where I'm the director. But also, I'm the Deputy Chancellor of the North Kigezi Diocese in Rukunjiri. I am married to a beautiful female advocate. I have 3 handsome sons and 1 daughter. And I am here to seek your mandate as your next president of the Uganda Law Society. And most importantly, the question should be, why Atkunda Isaac? I promise an independent and progressive bar association. Maybe to talk about the presidency of Uganda Law Society. The president of the society is the leader of council. The council has 9 council members. So the president offers leadership to the council. Most importantly, he must lead the council in decision making. He chairs all council meetings, and he is the official spokesperson of the society. So it is important that the president has the required experience of that leadership. Maybe to add that Uganda Law Society has so many key stakeholders, so the president is supposed to ensure that the stakeholders are aligned, and this requires an experienced leader. So Atkunda Isaac is that leader who you assure that if given a mandate, he will perform to the expectations of the membership of the Uganda Law Society, the public, and other stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was about to call you off. Thank you very much, Mr. Atikunda, for fitting into the time. Could we have a second gentleman introduce himself, including aspects of his manifesto that he would like to present?
Members of Uganda Law Society, I am honored to appear before you this afternoon as your presidential candidate. My name is Kenneth Chipalu. As I've mentioned before, I was born and bred in Uganda district. At the time I was born, there was no law firm in that town, and people struggled with access to justice. Right now, there are over 6 law firms. There are 6 law firms in the town. I am advocate number 1,606 on the advocate's roll. Right now, we are over 4,400 advocates. What is disturbing our society right now is we are disunited. We are torn apart. We have labeled ourselves different things that are affecting our functionality. And I am here to champion for our unity, to call us back together, to push for our professional values. Uganda Law Society is our home. It doesn't matter what line of practice you're in. It doesn't matter which part of the country you're practicing from. You are a member of Uganda Law Society. And my candidature is a call for unity. We need to address the challenges that face the legal profession. And what are those challenges? We have issues to do with rule of law. What is the lawyer's stand on rule of law? We know the values. We know the principles that underpin rule of law. Those are things which bind us together as lawyers. Let us come together and address the mountains before us. We have issues to do with members' welfare. It is disheartening to see a 50-year-old lawyer who has been in the profession and contributed to jurisprudence struggling to pay medical bills, and us doing fundraising through car washes. What can we as Uganda Law Society do to make sure that our members' welfare is catered for? Our legal education. What is the future of legal education? How are we prepared for it? That is what I am here to address. That is what my presidency stands for. And I'm here to request and canvass for your support.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chipalu. Rukhsana, can you do the raffle again, please, to find out who's speaking?
Sorry, Oscar, I didn't hear that clearly.
Because you did say that we would have a raffle. So could we have a raffle to decide on who will speak first? Who's answering first?
Yes, the raffle has been done, and Mr. Kenneth Kipalu will go first, right? He's number 2, and Mr. Isaac Atkunda will be number 1.
So for this next set of questions, we want Mr. Kipalu to be number 1. Please confirm, Rukhsana.
It is supposed to be Mr. Isaac Atukunda, but it looks like Mr. Kipalu might be the lucky one. For this one, yes, he'll go first, but for the others, we'll flip it.
He'll be.
Yes.
Okay, gentlemen, for these questions, each one of you will have to respond to them. So the first question, how do you plan to balance the diverse responsibilities of the ULS president, from representation and leadership to governance and strategic oversight? Can you provide specific examples of how you prioritize these duties? You have 2.5 minutes. Mr. Kipalu.
I don't know if you had, could you please repeat the question?
I'll just repeat the question for him. How do you plan to balance the diverse responsibilities of the ULS president, from representation and leadership to governance and strategic oversight? How do you plan to balance that?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. One, Uganda Law Society does not operate only through the president. Uganda Law Society has an executive council, and it is with that executive council that the president provides strategic direction. Oversight is also done through the administrative council, with the president being the chair of the executive council, the administrative responsibilities, we have a governance structure within the Uganda Law Society, which is...
Mr. Kipalo, I must interrupt. Kindly either move the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay. Is that better?
That's better.
Yes, to answer your question, Uganda Law Society president heads the executive council. It is with this executive council that he provides oversight to Uganda Law Society. Uganda Law Society has a secretariat. The secretariat is headed by the CEO. With the CEO, you manage, through the CEO, you manage the operational responsibilities of the Law Society. So there is a support infrastructure within Uganda Law Society through which the president can manage the responsibilities. You do not go in as a lone ranger. You must be able to work within a team. And it is only through a team that you can deliver on the responsibilities of Uganda Law Society. So in my manifesto, there is a specific focus area on improving on the governance structure of Uganda Law Society. And that's the reason I said the question you've asked is critical. I am aware that there is already a bill on Uganda Law Society before Parliament, which we need to push for, to improve on our governance structures. If you look at the Uganda Law Society Act as it is now, it does not define the powers of the president. It does not define the powers of the executive council. It does not define the powers of the CEO. It does not define the qualifications for one to be CEO. We have a real statutory governance issue. So what is happening is a matter of practice, but I think I believe, and my view, is that we also need to make it statutory, such that we improve the governance of the Law Society. But for now, we shall have to work within the existing structures, such that we deliver on our mandate.
Thank you. The same question. Rukshan, I've had some comments that my sound is not so good. Could you ask the sound manager to increase volume? So the same question goes to Mr. Atkunda. How do you plan to balance the diverse responsibilities of the ULS president, from representation and leadership to governance and strategic oversight? Can you provide specific examples of how you prioritize these duties? You have 2.5 minutes as well.
Thank you very much. Uganda Law Society has got structures and policies in place. For example, we have the Uganda Law Society Charter, which provides for the functions of the president of the Uganda Law Society. This charter at the same time provides for the Secretariat as the management arm of the Uganda Law Society. We also have the committees and clusters of the Uganda Law Society. Now, what the president does is to play an administrative responsibility together with the council to ensure that these different structures are performing their mandate. For example, we have the Department of Litigation at the Secretariat. This department has the responsibility of ensuring that when there is need to carry out public interest litigation, it performs this mandate on behalf of the society. Then the Secretariat, led by the CEO, ensures that Uganda Law Society is relevant to its members. So as a council, you ensure that these structures are performing their responsibility through the resolutions which you make, also through playing an oversight role. The presidency, unless you're going to be a dictator, is not about you as an individual. It is you performing the responsibility of the leader of a leader to counsel, to the secretariat, and to the other stakeholders as per the mandate of the Uganda Law Society, which is provided for the Uganda Law Society Act. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Kipalu, you would become spokesperson for the ULN if you are elected. How would you navigate potentially controversial issues while maintaining the integrity and impartiality of the society? Can you provide an example of how you would handle a sensitive public statement? That's 2.5 minutes as well.
Yes, thank you so much. As president, you're most certainly right. You're the spokesperson of the Uganda Law Society on positions that are pertaining or that are obtaining in a country at a particular time. And how would I handle controversial issues? We have committees in Uganda Law Society. Those committees, you have rule of law committee, you have bar bench committee or forum, and it is through these committees that you're advised. It's not that the president thinks an issue is wrong and therefore I'll issue a statement because in my own mind there is something which needs to be commented about. I have to get the position of the committee that is responsible for the particular issue in place. And once I have the position of the committee responsible for the particular issue in place, then we must speak with one voice as Uganda Law Society. Having said that, when does Uganda Law Society respond? I think that's a very critical issue. When does the president of Uganda Law Society speak up on a matter? When does the president of Uganda Law Society issue a statement? We shouldn't be issuing statements for the sake of it. There must be a compelling reason for us to issue a statement. And once we issue a statement, it must command the respect that it deserves. I do not agree with issuance of statements to pander to the gallery. We need to have a proper policy. And I believe that's what the committee would do. A proper policy guiding the president when you issue a statement. Now we are going for a heightened rule of law moment. You know, election cycles always have high emotions and issues often arise. But when does a Uganda Law Society president, when does a Uganda Law Society president issue a statement? We need a policy that can guide us such that our statements, our voice can command the respect that it deserves.
Thank you. Rukshana.
Thank you, Oscar. I think we will have Mr. Isaac Atukunde respond to the same question. And I'll repeat the question. In your role as a spokesperson of the Uganda Law Society, if you are successful, how would you navigate potentially controversial issues while maintaining the integrity and impartiality of the society? And it would be nice if you can actually provide an example of how you would handle a sensitive public statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leadership is about consulting, engaging, and taking advice. Now, Uganda Law Society is structured in a way that, for example, if there is a matter on rule of law, the Rule of Law Committee advises the president. So in most cases, every statement issued is issued after consultation has been made. Now, as the spokesperson of an institution, you do not communicate personal feelings or personal opinions. You communicate opinions which are opinions of the institution you represent. So in most cases, when there is a controversial issue, the council is consulted on which position the society should be taking. Now, the public must not just feel, but it must see Uganda Law Society perform its responsibility. And the responsibility is provided for under the Uganda Law Society Act. You must assist members of the public and advise on all matters incidental to the law. So whenever there is need to issue a statement, the president consults and a position is taken. Most times people say statements are always issued, but the responsibility is to advise. So you issue a statement in a way of advising the stakeholders on the right position of the law or on the policy that should be adopted. So that is one way the society advises by issuing statements. So as a spokesperson, I will ensure that I consult, I engage all the structures of the society, and I communicate the society positions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now proceed to tackling key issues. And the first issues are around the advancement of legal reforms. And we will start with you, Mr. Isaac Atukunda, because you selected number 1, correct? And for this question, you have 5 minutes. What innovative strategies would you implement to reduce case backlog and improve the efficiency of the justice system? And how would you engage with judicial officers and other stakeholders to address this pertinent issue?
Thank you very, very much. As I was campaigning, I engaged an advocate who had filed a matter 1 year ago. It hadn't been fixed, and he was wondering what he should do. Another advocate had the matter fixed. It hadn't been heard. Another one, the matter was heard, but he wasn't satisfied with the decision. Another one had a decision delayed. So there are so many challenges relating to administration of justice. And it is our responsibility as Uganda Law Society to advise and engage the judiciary and ensure that the administration of justice is done as per the law. Now, I have ideas. Of course, some steps have been taken by the society, the bar bench engagements, the stakeholder engagements, meetings have been had with the leaders of the judiciary. But in addition to that, for example, we are introducing a judiciary performance review report. Every quarter, as Uganda Law Society, we shall be producing a report based on the findings we've made relating to the performance of the judicial functions. Now, how we shall do this, there is an online form which is being developed. This form shall be filled by the members. They will put in their complaints, which are received by the bar bench committee of the Uganda Law Society, which we are going to set up. The bar bench committee will be following up these complaints, and then feedback is given. But we know that may not be sufficient, because the issues relating to administration of justice, ranging from poor quality decisions, ranging from delayed decisions, case backlog, start from the process of recruitment.
You have 3 minutes.
I'm happy to say that steps are being taken on the process of recruitment. I know before Parliament, there is a policy providing for public participation. And we take this to be key, that the public, and specifically Uganda Law Society, should be involved in the process of recruitment of judicial officers. We know it is happening in neighboring countries like Kenya, so that we are able to monitor this opaque process of recruitment of judicial officers. Because unless you have this process cleared, then it means you're going to have poor quality judicial officers, which results in case backlog, poor quality decisions, and all those challenges within the judiciary processes. So my responsibility to make sure that we put in place these mechanisms as a way of ensuring that there is judicial accountability and independence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac Atukunda. Mr. Kipalu,
Yes.
you have, if you would like to respond to that question,
Yes.
you have 2 minutes for that question,
Yes.
but then you'll have 3 minutes for the other question I have for you. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's fine. Just to respond to that question, case backlog is a real bottleneck of justice. Case backlog. Delayed justice is a close neighbor of denied justice. And what can we do as law society? Number one, we must encourage mediation and arbitration, because that's a game changer. It reduces the case backlog in court. We can have cases settled outside of the court structure. Number one, appellate arbitration, which is being championed by Honorable Justice Chiriabwira. We need to support it. Three, we need to enter into a memorandum of understanding with ULI, such that we can get analytics of which judges are releasing judgments, which judges are not releasing judgments. There you can know who is working and who is not working. Four, we need to prescribe time for issuance of judgments. You can have a matter concluded and it pends judgment for 3 years. We have timelines within which advocates must file pleadings. Why can't we have timelines within which judges must issue judgments? That, in my view, is what will change, is what will help improve or reduce on the case backlog we have in our courts.
Okay, thank you. I will give you then your next question, for which you have 3 minutes. Given the need for legal reforms, how would you leverage the ULS's position to advocate for changes that enhance the rule of law and justice delivery? Please share your vision for a key reform that you believe is crucial and how you would work towards its implementation. You have 3 minutes for that question.
Yes, thank you so much. We are in dire need of constitutional reforms. And as Uganda Law Society, we must be at the center of that conversation. That is why I believe we need to be united as lawyers. We need to work together with the Attorney General and push for the reforms that we need in this country. I'll give you an example. We need public participation in the appointment of judges. It must be a matter embedded in our constitution, such that the public can get to participate in the process of recruitment of judicial officers. That is something we need to push and advocate for. It is very critical to the rule of law. Justice is rendered in the name of the people, and the participation of the people the participation of people in the appointment of judges who render justice in their name is critical. It cannot be a closed door affair. How am I going to do it? We need to engage. We need to collaborate. Uganda Law Society has no responsibility of changing laws. We need to work together with AG's office. We need to work together with Parliament. We need to collaborate and engage. It is the only way. It is the only way we influence the legal reforms that we need. But for now, that is top of my agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Kenneth Kipalu. You have 1 minute to submit to that one, then I ask you other questions.
Though you gave my colleague 2 minutes when he was responding.
I'll give you 2 minutes, but that reduces your time for the other
Thank you.
question.
Thank you. Thank you. In my agenda, I'm providing for a law review committee of the Uganda Law Society. Times have changed. There are so many advancements happening in the legal sector. Now, as Uganda Law Society, our institutional capacity to always keep a keen eye on the changes sometimes is encumbered by lack of resources. So we intend to set up a committee specifically to deal with this issue, because most often we are called upon to engage in the legislative process when there are bills before Parliament. URS is consulted, but this time we are going to set up a committee specifically concerned with these processes of law reform, and reports shall be produced to the members on the key reforms we are proposing. But also we shall encourage public interest litigation, specifically on those laws which we feel are unconstitutional and shouldn't be laws in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you. And still, because you still have the mic, please hold on to it. We'll turn to the issue of international human rights. If you're elected president, how will you ensure adherence to international human rights treaties through promoting equality and non-discrimination? If elected president, how will you ensure adherence to international human rights treaties through promoting equality and non-discrimination?
Thank you very much. We had a debate on matters relating to discrimination and equality, specifically for female advocates. It is real that there is discrimination in all spheres. I appreciate that, for example, in Uganda, this discrimination sometimes is brought about by the cultural practices, by the society practices. So besides us having the statutes, the international statutes on human rights and specifically on discrimination, we must also ensure that we have civic education of our societies to appreciate the enforcement of these international human rights. Now, as I earlier submitted, we have committees. Now, through these committees, we should be carrying out civic education of the public. We should be litigating whenever these rights are abused. And also, I will make sure that as a president, we engage the stakeholders that are involved in this space. For example, we have different organizations which we deal with that specifically are in this space, but we do not have concrete MOUs. I'll make sure that we sign MOUs, and when we need intervention through these different stakeholders and our committees, we shall ensure that we address issues of discrimination. Thank you, and inequality.
Thank you so much. I'll put the same question to you, Mr. Kipalu. If you are elected president, how will you ensure adherence to international human rights treaties through promoting equality and non-discrimination? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. First of all, human rights are inherent. They are not granted by the state. They are not a privilege from the state. A human being is born free. And as law society, we need to uphold that principle. We need to uphold non-discrimination. We need to uphold everybody's rights. What is the challenge? The reason why people now stand up for their rights much more than the generations before them is because there is an awareness that they now have that previous generations may not have had. So the place for civic education and engagement cannot be understated. I have been trained on civic engagement. I know how to engage with people. And I believe that is very key. Law society deliberately going out to engage people, to educate people on their rights. That must be top of the agenda. Then 2, there must be a price for anyone who abuses anybody's rights. There must be a price to be paid. And that's why we must, through Uganda Law Society, push for public interest litigations. Make no mistake, most of the discrimination happens at the bottom. It happens at the top, but it happens more regularly to people who may not be aware of their rights. Therefore, we need to go down there. We need to provide representation to all those people with that understanding that they are equally human. That's my...
Thank you very much. Oscar, will turn to you now to take the next couple of questions.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, gentlemen. We go to promotion of good governance. The president must ensure that the US upholds and promotes good governance practices within its own operation and in the broader legal community, and so on. The first question, since this order was predetermined, goes to Mr. Atkunda. How do you envision promoting good governance within the ULS and the broader legal community? More specifically, what specific measures would you take to ensure transparency, accountability, and inclusive decision-making?
That question is to you, Mr. Atkunda. Would you like me to repeat it? Okay, I'll quickly repeat it. How do you envision promoting good governance within the Uganda Law Society and the broader legal community? More specifically, what specific measures would you take to ensure transparency, accountability, and inclusive decision-making? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Maybe I was trying to pick whether the question related to law society as an institution in terms of good governance, or the law society holding the government for purposes of good governance. I mean, holding government responsible for purposes of good governance.
The good governance is within the Uganda Law Society and the broader legal community.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Now, Uganda Law Society as an institution must be strong enough in order for it to push for good governance in a broader perspective. So the agenda should be strengthening the management and the administration structure of the Uganda Law Society. I will be honest that Uganda Law Society will not be able to address every challenge that Ugandans are facing. That I have to be honest, because some of these challenges are political challenges, and Uganda Law Society is not a political party that, for example, it will address political issues. But in terms of the law, we must build the institutional capacity of the Uganda Law Society. Obviously, sometimes we are hampered by the resources, but times now call for drastic measures and intentional measures of building the institutional capacity of ULS. I will give an example. If today we do not have a strong department of rule of law and litigation, it would be difficult for ULS to hold the government accountable, because as an institution, if the president leaves, the institution stays. A president serves for 1 year, the president of Uganda Law Society. So if Isaac today is good enough and he enforces the mandate of Uganda Law Society, if he leaves, the society won't be able to achieve this mandate. So it is on my agenda that I will build the capacity of our secretariat. We shall make sure that we recruit the officers who can perform this obligation on behalf of the society. And we shall not hesitate to call out every government institution or department that is not performing its responsibility as per the laws of Uganda. Thank you.
Mr. Kipalo, would you like to contribute to that discussion? You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yes, just the question of how we can promote good governance, accountability, and transparency within Uganda Law Society. I believe Secretariat must be independent fully of the Executive Council. Fully independent of the Executive Council. Number 2, I believe we need to make our books of accounts accessible on our website, fully, at all times. 3, on inclusive decision making. We need to make the ULS charter that my brother talked about earlier accessible, such that people know what are the powers of the president, what are the powers of the secretariat, what are the powers of the AGM. And we need, as a matter of urgency, to revise the Uganda Law Society Act. This is an act of 1956. I am not sure how many members of Law Society were within the organization at that time. Right now, we are a society of over 4,400 members. We need to address the key governance issues and make them statutory, such that we know how to apply ourselves and make the society more transparent, more accountable, and more inclusive.
Over to you, Oscar.
Thank you. So the second question, just remind me a little bit, are we going to the second question for Mr. Kipalu?
No, we're actually going to the first question for Mr. Kipalu. That will be his first question in that category.
His first question is, yes, the Uganda Law Society, the ULS, plays a crucial role in promoting human rights and constitutionalism. How would you ensure the ULS remains a strong and independent voice in advocating these principles, especially in potentially contentious situations? You have 2.5 minutes.
I'll repeat the question for him. The Uganda Law
Yes,
Society
please.
plays a crucial role in promoting human rights and constitutionalism. How would you ensure that the ULS remains a strong and independent voice in advocating for these principles, especially in potentially contentious situations?
Yes, potentially contentious situations are very divisive. And even as lawyers, we may disagree on where there is a violation of human rights or where there is not. So that is a very critical thing for me as president, especially now that we are going for elections. We are likely to be torn apart based on which political party we are supporting. But how can Uganda Law Society remain a unifying voice and also advance for the protection of human rights and constitutionalism? Number one, we have structures of Uganda Law Society. One of those structures is the Rule of Law Committee that assesses a situation and determines if there has been a violation. Once it determines that there has been a violation warranting us to issue a statement or engage with the government authorities, that is what we are going to do. Number two, I have mentioned earlier that we need to have a proper policy on when we engage. When does the president of Uganda Law Society intervene? When do we issue a statement? That way, we are bound as members of Uganda Law Society, and we shall not be divided because of an opinion that I have given, because it is following a proper policy that we all agreed to as a membership. That, having said that, Uganda Law Society should not shy away from calling out the government when it has done something wrong. We all know the principles of law. We all know what human rights are. As I have said, they are not a privilege from the state. They are not granted by the state. And where there has been a violation, if someone has been arrested beyond the 48 hours, if someone has been held incommunicado, if someone has been tortured, most certainly, Uganda Law Society must intervene, issue a statement, and engage the relevant authorities.
Thank you. Thank you. Ruxana, we have a third question. So I recommend the two gentlemen respond to that question just using 2 minutes. However,
Okay,
Mr.
Oscar.
Chikunda, would you like to respond to
Yes.
Mr. Chipalu?
Yeah, I wanted to give a comment. Uganda Law
Okay.
Society,
Please go ahead.
Uganda Law Society, through its Rule of Law Committee, publishes a quarterly rule of law report. This report is done independently, and we usually hold the government accountable through this rule of law report. But also, we usually have awareness campaigns. We know in most cases, even when human rights are abused, people are not aware. So we sensitize the public about their rights. Also, we encourage pro bono. We engage our members to ensure that they participate in pro bono, because there are areas where we do not reach, and sometimes we are not aware of what is happening. So we encourage our members, we train our members who are interested in human rights practice to ensure that they represent the indigent persons whose rights have been abused. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And for this question, both of you will have the same one for 2 minutes. And beginning with you, Mr. Atukunda, how will the president hold governments and public officials accountable for their actions and decisions? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I'm wondering why we are insisting on the president, because we cannot have a president who is a dictator. A president must enforce the decisions of council. Now, what happens is, when there is a political leader who has committed a wrong. Recently, for example, we sued the police officers who violated the rights of demonstrators in the Walk to Parliament demonstration. Now, we have taken deliberate steps to ensure that we hold accountable individual public officers who violate these rights. So as a president, I will ensure that we continue with this move and hold these individuals personally accountable for the violations they commit. Thank you.
Mr. Kipalu, same question to you. You have 2 minutes.
Yes. How will the president of Uganda Law Society hold public officials accountable? That's the question, right?
Yes, accountable for the actions.
Yes, it is. Actions and decisions.
Actions and this. Now, number one, we must recognize our responsibility as Uganda Law Society. We have a responsibility to the wider community and to uphold the rule of law. And we should not be quiet when something wrong has been done. We have the Human Rights Enforcement Act, which makes human rights violations personal to the perpetrator. Therefore, we shall continue taking up matters on pro bono against any public officials who violate anybody's rights in Uganda. That we are going to do. If there's a public official who is engaged in matters of malfeasance, as Uganda Law Society, we need to have a position and engage with the relevant authorities for the necessary action. We have so many sister agencies. We have the Director of Public Prosecutions, we have the Inspectorate of Government, we have the Attorney General's Office. We need to have a collaboration with all these agencies to ensure that public officials are held to account. We are the public's watchdog as well, and we must stand up to that responsibility through engaging all the relevant officers that must take the necessary action to hold public officials to account.
Okay, thank you very much. Ruchana.
Thank you, Oscar. We'll now take a bit of time addressing the issue of access to justice, enhancing access to justice. And my first question goes to you, Mr. Isaac Atukunda. It is no secret that access to justice remains a significant challenge, especially for underserved communities. What innovative initiatives would you champion to bridge this gap, and how would you measure their effectiveness? 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for that question. Access to justice is the ability of individuals whose rights have been violated access the judicial systems or using the legal processes provided for in the laws. Now, the main issues hampering this access to justice usually rotates around affordability, availability, efficiency, and knowledge of these rights. Thank God, the senior members who started Uganda Law Society established what we call the Legal Aid Project of the Uganda Law Society, through which we ensure that the indigent persons, the poor persons, access justice in Uganda. I am happy to report that in the last 1 year, we have represented around 2,000 indigent persons under the Legal Aid Project. We have had challenges there because of the closure of DGF. So the funding went down and some clinics have not been well operating and others were closed. Now, as the president of Uganda Law Society, I will ensure that I engage the stakeholders. I look out for other donors. Ensure that we open up more clinics in those areas where violations are happening. Also, we had an idea of the basket fund. Currently, the council has put in the basket fund around 50 million. We want to ensure that the legal aid project is sustainable. So through the basket fund, we should be able to raise funds to support legal aid projects through which the indigent persons can access justice. Also, we have the pro bono project. Unfortunately for us, the pro bono, the legal aid bill was not passed in Parliament, but we are also putting in place measures of seeking donors to finance our pro bono project, and we are going to continuously encourage our members to offer pro bono because access to justice is a key tenet of rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kipalo. You'd like to address yourself to that?
How many minutes?
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay. Number one, we must understand what are the bottlenecks of access to justice right now. One, the expense. Two, ignorance. Those are the major bottlenecks of access to justice, both in the criminal justice system and the civil justice system. So, as Uganda Law Society, what can we do? We already have a legal aid project ongoing with officers all over the country. But can we push for the passing of the National Legal Aid Bill? Can we advocate for the passing of that bill? It answers most of the resource challenges that are faced by the legal aid project of Uganda Law Society. Can we push for the passing of that bill? Since 2012, it has been in the shelves of Parliament. That is one of the things we need to do as a matter of urgency. Then number two, we need to educate people. We need to engage with the public on their rights. So many people are suffering silently, and they don't even know that they can stand up and be helped. So I believe that civic engagement is also necessary for people. And as president, those are some of the things I would do to improve access to justice.
Okay, thank you. Keep the mic, please, because the next question is fast coming to you. What plans do you have to improve the independence, impartiality, and efficiency of the judiciary? And what will it take for law enforcement agencies to operate fairly and effectively? 5 minutes.
Thank you. Judicial independence is very critical to our legal practice. It's very critical to the democracy of any country. If your judiciary is not independent, you'll even affect the investments taking place in your country, because no businessman will want to invest in a country where the justice system is rigged. Therefore, it's a key issue. For us as lawyers, It's what helps our business thrive, even the general public. It's what will help us develop. And it's a real crisis right now, I may put it that way. What can we do? Number one, we need constitutional reforms. I've already them mentioned. Public participation in the appointment of judges is critical. We need to push for that reform. We as the public, justice is done in our name, and we must be able to participate in the appointment of judges and judicial officers. So we need to push for that reform as Uganda Law Society. Number two, we need to stand firm. We need to stand firm whenever a judicial officer's independence is threatened. And we have so many examples to draw from. There was a time, my Lord Justice, Honorable Justice Mubiru, I think, came under a perceived, came under perceived attack for making a decision. And lawyers, members of Uganda Law Society, stood up. It was the conversation on all WhatsApp fora. It was the conversation on X. It was the conversation on all social media platforms. And as a result, we were able to push back. Number three, we need to continuously publish and highlight these issues for posterity. We need to talk about instances where judicial independence has been threatened. We need to talk about instances where judicial independence has been affirmed. Those are things we intend to do. Also, we need to draw from our previous experience. You remember the Black Mamba incident that happened at High Court. Lawyers went and marched around the High Court to cleanse it. We need to draw from those experiences and do the same thing even in this day and age. That, I believe, is how we shall play our part in upholding judicial independence.
Thank you, Mr. Atkunda. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. In Uganda, we have a very, very critical challenge of judicial independence. And basically, it arises from failure to observe the doctrine of separation of powers. That's why, for example, recently, we are dealing with the crisis of appointing judges in acting capacity. It is despicable. As yet, we have questioned the rationale of this. We have a justice who recently was not confirmed because she had been appointed in acting capacity. And we are questioning how was this decision reached of not appointing her. So as URS, we have a firm position on the independence of the judiciary and accountability of the judiciary. We are advocating for reforms to ensure that there is real separation of power, so there is no political interference in the functions of the judiciary, but also on our part as the Bar Association. Sometimes individual judicial officers act outside their mandate. We are also looking at our members, because judicial officers most times are members of the Bar Association who cross to the bar, to the bench. So we are emphasizing the issue of professional ethics and professional conduct on our members, so that the moment they cross to the bench, they can retain these professional ethics and standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold on to the microphone. We cannot talk about access to justice and not consider levels of awareness. I cannot fight for my rights if I do not know what my rights are. So the next question I'd like to put to you, Mr. Isaac Atkunda, is public legal education is essential for empowering our citizens. What innovative approaches would you take to enhance public understanding of their legal rights and responsibilities? You have 2 minutes for that.
Thank you very much. There is a saying that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And we are asking recently how the Uganda Law Reform Commission made a decision of making the laws of Uganda as expensive as it is today, because accessing the laws of Uganda is so expensive, even for us, the advocates. Now, one of the ideas we have is to introduce a Uganda Law Society online library. We shall subscribe as an institution so that our members can access these the laws of Uganda. But also, I would admit that we have fallen short on carrying out public awareness campaigns. And one of the reforms I'll push for when I'm the president is to make sure that we have a deliberate program for making sure that the public is aware of its rights, the obligations, in as far as the laws are concerned. So 2 things: public awareness campaigns and the online library. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kipalo, I'm going to put the same question to you, but before he hands over the mic, what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So how would you measure the impact of these initiatives?
As at Uganda, we have digitalized our processes. So, for example, for the online library, we are able to monitor the accessibility of the library. But for public awareness campaigns, every program or project that is conducted, you carry out an assessment. So it is through conducting these assessments, project assessments, that you're able to ascertain the effectiveness of these campaigns. Thank you.
Mr. Kipalo?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Public legal education is essential for empowering citizens. What innovative approaches would you take to enhance public understanding of legal rights and responsibilities?
Yes. Some of the innovative approaches would have: 1, I am aware that Uganda Law Reform Commission is in a process of translating some of our laws into local languages. And there are key issues which affect Ugandans. Issues to do with succession. Those affect everybody. Issues, criminal law, criminal justice system. Those affect everybody. The Constitution, those affect everybody. We need to have these laws translated in the local languages. And working with Uganda Law Reform Commission, I believe Uganda Law Society has a part to play. Uganda Law Reform Commission is in that process, and as Law Society, we need to take part and support such initiatives. I believe that is that's an innovative solution that will enable people to access legal materials in their local languages. Number 2, I do not know the last time a Uganda Law Society representative in these districts far from Kampala ever appeared on a radio talk show to educate people about their rights, even if it's on succession planning. I do not know the last time we ever did that. Could we revamp that spirit? Educating people about their rights. People listen to radio, especially up country or in the village where I come from. People need to be made aware of their rights. People need to know how important it is to make a will. People need to know that you cannot be held in police custody for more than 48 hours. Those are the issues which affect ordinary Ugandans. And I believe those innovative approaches can help improve their level of awareness. Of course, we can also engage in awareness campaigns, which is already in place. And now, I am aware that Law Council is passing paralegal regulations. We need to consider if Uganda Law Society can start training paralegals just to equip them with basic legal knowledge and skills that can help them champion human rights in their respective areas. But it's something we need to seriously consider.
Thank you very much. And maybe my final question from this segment before we head over to Oscar is in the area of digitalization. And we'd like to know how you would leverage digital tools to improve access to legal information and services in an era of rapid technological change. What potential challenges do you foresee in this digital transformation, and how would you address them?
Thank you very much. We had the annual law conference last month, and our emphasis was much on practice for the future. We know technology has come to disrupt. I'm happy to report that at Uganda Law Society, we have digitalized most of our services. Members can now access most of the services of the society online. We have been engaging the stakeholders. Specifically, we've engaged the Office of the Chief Registrar to ensure that by end of next year, we have digitalized practicing certificates. We're engaging Law Council to ensure that we have a digitalized process for application for approval of chambers. We agree there is disruption because of technology, and we have taken deliberate steps to ensure that we have continuing legal education of our membership, specifically on aspects of technology. Of recent, most law firms are using legal tech tools to do most of the business. There are issues to do with virtual practice, and one of the items of my manifesto is to reform the laws governing practice. Most members are asking, for example, if I want to practice virtually, how do I do it? If I don't want to operate a law firm, but I'm an advocate, I want to renew my PC. So we must also push for reforms of the regulatory framework of legal practice in Uganda. So we have done our part as the Uganda Law Society. We shall continue engaging and advocating for the reforms of the regulatory framework to ensure that we comply with the technology age we are in. Thank you.
Thank you. You've outlined a couple of initiatives that have been put in place. There is a particular system, the ECME system, which it has been a significant initiative, but it has its challenges. Am I right? It has its challenges. What would be your plan to improve or streamline this system as it directly impacts the efficiency and effectiveness of legal practice?
Thank you very much. As a way of addressing the issues of ECMIS, we set up an ECMIS committee, which has been engaging the judiciary on matters relating to ECMIS. I'm happy to say that serious steps have been undertaken, and of recent, the issues relating to ECMIS have tremendously reduced. We organize the bar bench forums where the members engage the judiciary whenever there are issues to do with ECMIS. But also, most importantly, we are always engaging our membership and training them on how to use ECMIS. So we have also been advocating for internet, because ECMIS works with internet. The government had promised free internet. So we are also requesting the judiciary that before ECMIS is rolled out to the other courts outside Kampala, there should be measures to ensure that there is access to the internet by the practitioners in those areas. But as the judiciary has already said, ECMIS is here to stay. We just have to learn how to adapt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kipalu. I'd like to continue with that line of questioning, but probably take a slightly different direction. We know that the process of digitization and digitalization, by its nature, will have early adopters. There are people who pick up very quickly, but it will also have people who are laggards. And these tend to be the probably older generation. As you champion this digitalization and digitization, how will you ensure that you do not leave anyone behind?
Thank you so much. First of all, we all learn things through somebody or through reading about it. You must be educated. You're not too old to learn. You're not too old to learn anything new or to acquire a new skill. And I think all members of our profession need to be made aware of how to use ICMIS. They need to be taught on how to use ICMIS, because it's the future and it's here. I am aware that there are personnel at the different courts of record whom, if you engaged with the registrar, they can come even to your chambers and train you on how to use ICMIS. So this is an initiative of the judiciary that we can build upon as law society. No one is too old to learn. The computer is not complicated even for the oldest of us. We can all still learn. And I don't think really that's very complicated. We just have to build on that. Make sure that the responsible personnel at the judiciary are available and easily accessible for our senior colleagues to be taught on how to use ICMIS. Those who have not yet learned.
Thank you very much.
Though there's just one specific challenge with ICMIS that I would push, that is addressed. I am a litigator and I'm a frequent user of ICMIS. But ICMIS, when you are dealing with an urgent matter, if you're dealing with an urgent matter, and say for example, the system has assigned a matter to a specific judge. If that judge is away on leave, the process of having that matter migrated or transferred to another judge is very problematic. And by the time, it's very long and tedious. By the time you have a matter transferred to a different judge, whatever you are trying to prevent from happening has already happened. So I think we need to make that process of transfer of file, in the event a judge is unable to attend to a matter, we need to make it more seamless. I know it cannot be perfect at the start, but we need to always push for this progress, even in our digitization journey. And many other things which I may not talk about with ICMIS, but I believe we need to find a way of improving it.
Thank you, Mr. Kipalu. Over to you, Oscar.
Thank you. Strengthening partnerships is the next area. The President build and maintain strategic partnerships with national and international stakeholders to advance ULS's goals. I'm trying video on, and I hope it's a little bit clearer. Shout out Luciana if it isn't, and I'll go back to not having video. So the first question goes to you, Mr. Atukunda. Building and maintaining strategic partnerships is crucial for the ULS. How would you identify and cultivate relationships with key national and international stakeholders? Please provide an example of a partnership you believe would be particularly beneficial and how you would develop it. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Now, this is what I've been telling colleagues. Leadership is key in matters of stakeholder relationships. As a leader, you should be able to engage. You should be able to reach out to the stakeholders. Uganda Law Society largely depends on the stakeholders who support it through pro bono project, through conferences, thanks to the members who usually contribute or usually sponsor most of our conferences. Now, we have associations which we subscribe to, like the International Bar Association. Of recent, we also subscribe to the American Bar Association. we have the East African Law Society. Now, through those partnerships, we are able to get support for the Uganda Law Society. But also, we do proposals at the Uganda Law Society. In fact, one of the agenda items I have is to make sure that we have a resource mobilization officer who can do project proposals. We reach out to different stakeholders, specifically we reach out to the donors, to the funders, to ensure that we raise finances for the Uganda Law Society. And to me, this is why it is so critical that on 28th, we elect a leader, at least who has an idea on the key stakeholders of Uganda Law Society, on a leader who can engage, on a leader who can build strong relationships with the stakeholders for purposes of developing our society. And I believe I am in better position to do this because I've been doing it while on council. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kpalu,
Could you please?
could you answer the same question, please, for 2.5 minutes? Would you like me to read it again?
Maybe she can do it.
Oscar, let me repeat the question for clarity.
Oh, thank you very much.
Building and maintaining strategic partnerships is crucial for the Uganda Law Society. How would you identify and cultivate relationships with key national and international stakeholders? Please provide an example of a partnership you believe would be particularly beneficial and how you would develop it.
One, Uganda Law Society does not operate as an island. We operate within an environment. To operate successfully within an environment, you need the support of all the relevant stakeholders. That calls for a critical understanding of stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement. Nationally, who are your stakeholders? You cannot alienate the government. You cannot alienate the Attorney General's office. You cannot alienate the Uganda Police Force. You cannot alienate the IGG's office. You cannot alienate the DPP's office. All these agencies of government, Uganda Law Reform Commission, they are critical to the functions of Uganda Law Society set out under Section 3 of the Uganda Law Society Act. You need their collaboration. You need their collaboration and engagement because they are critical to your success if you're to fulfill the responsibilities set out under Section 3 of the Act. So you identify the stakeholders by looking at the objects of the Act. So nationally, I've already mapped out some of the stakeholders that are critical to our functioning as a society. Then internationally, what are those organizations that have similar objectives to our own? We are not going to go and partner with organizations which may not help us in the achievement of our objectives. What are those organizations? How can we partner with them in a way that is mutually beneficial to members of Uganda Law Society and members of the other side? That is what we need to do. I agree, International Bar Association is a critical international agency. But there are also several other international organizations that help to support the causes that we champion. We champion rule of law, we champion access to justice. What are those organizations with similar objectives? If they come to us right now, how ready are we for that support? How ready are we for that partnership? How are our governance structures? And how can they inform confidence of any potential partnerships we may need at an international level? People are not going to come and partner with an organization that is not well balanced, whose governance structures are not properly defined. Can we work on that? Can we work on our proposals for partnership with these international associations? So that would be my role. I believe there is so much we achieve through unity, through collaboration, through engagement. And the support, even of government, can never be understated in securing these partnerships and in enabling them to work for the benefit of our members.
Okay. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Atkunda. As the ULS president, you would represent the society in various forms, including the Justice, Law and Order Sector Steering Committee. Let's talk about ensuring that the diverse perspectives of ULS members are effectively represented in these high-level discussions. What does that look like for you? You have 2.5 minutes.
Uganda Law Society has societal representatives to most of the statutory bodies. There has been a very critical issue on how these representatives account to the members. I've been one of the voices on council that has been calling for a draft policy governing these representatives, because we have over 20 representatives to these statutory bodies. One of the agenda items I have is to ensure that we have a policy framework for nomination of the representatives, the process of vetting them, the process of holding them accountable. So besides the president representing, we must have a policy, we must have regulations on how these representatives account to the society, on how they are vetted, on how they are nominated, so that in case they don't perform their responsibilities, they are recalled. And I'm emphatic on this. In my first 100 days, I will make sure that the issue of representation is resolved, because it is very key in accounting to the membership on what we do when we go to the statutory bodies as representatives. Thank you.
Mr. Kipalu?
Yes. You have 2.5 minutes, Mr. Kipalu. Would you like the question repeated for you?
Yes, please.
I'll repeat the question.
Go on,
Oscar.
Ruxana, please.
As the ULS president, you would represent the society in various forums, including the Justice, Law and Order Sector Steering Committee. Let's talk about ensuring that the diverse perspectives of the ULS members are effectively represented in these high-level discussions. What does that look like for you? 2.5 minutes.
The presentation of the views of members of Uganda Law Society, how do we elicit it? It's about being transparent. If I have been invited for an engagement by a body within the jail sector, and it's not matters which are confidential, why would I not elicit the views of my membership? I have my views as a person, but those are not the only views I represent. I also represent the views of an entire membership. We need to be transparent about how we represent our members in the different bodies that we sit on. If there's a critical decision to be taken, it does not hurt for you to send out an email to your members inviting their views on the subject. It does not hurt, and it does not cost much for you to elicit opinions from the different members. And then as a leader, you can guide on the way forward. But I believe transparency is critical, especially when we are having these high-level discussions within the jail sector. And that would be my plan on how to represent the diverse views of the membership. But even as I stand in this election, I have laid out what I stand for. I have laid out what my presidency will be about. And that, my friends, is what I am going to be taking to all these bodies within the jail sector. So I believe that they can count on what I am pledging in this election. They can count on the fact that I will always elicit for their views and opinions on any matter that is going on.
Thank you, Mr. Kipalu. And I think this is a good point to take a health break. We have engaged you for quite a bit. I think we need to stretch a bit gather ourselves again. Just 5 minutes, let's take a break and then come back here and continue with the debate. Thank you, gentlemen. A big thank you to everyone that has joined us for this presidential debate online from wherever it is that you're joining us. We've had a rather engaging couple of hours with our two candidates who made it today. It's been quite interesting hearing their thoughts about the different issues that are of concern, not just to the legal fraternity, but to the nation as a whole. And I hope and trust that by the end of this debate, it will be very clear who your choice candidate is. We just have a couple of more minutes to go before we close this. And at this point in time, I'd just like to encourage everyone that's joining us online to start posting any questions that you might have. We will take those a little later on. But for now, we are going to get into the section that engages with our potential presidents to just assess what plans they have to engage and address the needs, some of the key needs of the ULS members, of course, including those in remote areas. And we'll start with you, Mr. Atukunda. We'll grab the mic.
Rukshana, could you, Rukshana, add that the program has been recorded, and even those that have missed the event live can catch it?
Absolutely. So as Oscar has said, it's a recorded program. You have no excuse for not catching it later and making the right choice. So we'll get into member issues, and there are a number of issues, but today we'd just like to focus on about possibly 3 issues. And I'll start with one question to you, Mr. Atukunda. Young lawyers have expressed concerns about a number of issues, poor pay being one of those, and working conditions. What concrete steps would you take to address these issues and enhance the welfare of the young legal professionals? But along with that question, how would you balance this with the needs of the more established members?
Thank you very much.
You have 5 minutes.
When I was campaigning to be the Honorary Secretary, my agenda was a member-centric Uganda Law Society. Actually, what forced me to serve on the council was to make sure that we have a society that is relevant to the members. ULS is as strong as its vulnerable member. So on the issue of members, I'm so passionate about our members of Uganda Law Society. But besides the members, they are also our future members. We cannot talk about the members while ignoring our future members. For example, it has been a sad situation that law students were not admitted at LDC. I can authoritatively say that I have been engaging as the Honorary Secretary. I've moved to the office of the Attorney General, to the office of the Secretary of Law Council to lobby and ensure that the students are admitted at LDC. I feel for a parent who educates a child and at that point admission is not given. And as I earlier said, stakeholder engagement is key. I believe that the students are actually going to be admitted because that is what I'm being promised by the stakeholders. And the moment they are admitted, I would celebrate because I've been passionate about it. So the issue isn't just about members, but also the prospective members. But now back to our members, the young lawyers. Personally, I've had a history of supporting the young lawyers. We hear their cries. I have to be honest that some of them are personal, for which every young advocate must put in an effort. For example, personal development and growth. But as Uganda Law Society, their promises I'm making to the young advocates. Number 1, for those joining the Bar Association, we need to reduce their annual subscription from 500,000 to 350,000 because we know they have no jobs and they cannot afford the current annual subscription. For those who are already members, deliberately we shall ensure that at least they access not less than 20 free CLE points. I have the idea of at least having a CLE training which is free. every month, at least carrying 2 points. We are also going to deliberately ensure that we have mentorship cells for the young lawyers. I have been a young lawyer. I know that without professional development, the young lawyers can never earn what they are supposed to earn. About the issue of salaries, we shall ensure that the employment policies in law firms are enforced so that the young lawyer is able to negotiate a wage, and if the wage is negotiated, then it is enforced. Our female lawyers, I am married to a female advocate. I know what female lawyers go through. They must be given hope that this can be resolved. Some of the challenges are historical because of the society biases, but some, as a professional body, we should be enabling them to address them. For example, we know that our female lawyers are complaining about sexual harassment in their workplaces. We have a sexual harassment policy at Uganda Law Society, but because we've not been receiving complaints, it has not been enforced. In my first 100 days, I will make sure that a sexual harassment committee is in place to receive complaints from our female young lawyers so that their issues are addressed. And I also have an agenda item to do with partnerships with the female lawyers associations. There is the Female Lawyers Network, there is the Fidelis Institute of Development, there is FIDA, there is the Women in Law Firm Owners Association. So we shall engage them to ensure that they enable the mentorship of our female lawyers. Now, the senior lawyers are usually forgotten. I must mention that when we are organizing Uganda Law Society conferences, when you are organizing any event of the Uganda Law Society, the senior lawyers immensely support us. But they feel alienated from the society because they feel their numbers are low. I will ensure that the senior lawyers committee is fully functional. I will ensure that we engage them in the mentorship of our young lawyers. I will ensure that our senior lawyers benefit from some of the policies we are setting up. We are deliberately going to set up an insurance scheme. So
30 seconds.
So they are able to access at least the basic medical insurance, because most of them have lifestyle diseases and they are no longer working. Under this scheme, which shall be under the benevolent fund, they will be catered for. We are also going to operationalize our circle to ensure that they can be able to access some of the financial services the society will have to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Atukunda. Would you like to address those issues as well, Mr. Kipalu? The issue of the young lawyers and their concerns about the working conditions and the poor pay. What steps would you take to address the issues and also enhance the welfare of, and also balance this with the needs of the more established members? I'm going to bundle that with a question on female lawyers who are advocating for stronger measures against sexual harassment. What specific reforms would you propose to create a safer and more equitable environment for all legal professionals? Take those two questions at a go. 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. The issue of young lawyers should be a central question for Uganda Law Society. Number one, they are members that are not joining the organization or the institution of Uganda Law Society. Then there are members who, having joined the Law Society, feel like they are not, the Law Society does not help them in any way in addressing some of the challenges they face. And what are those challenges? For a member who has not yet joined the Law Society, is having a challenge enrolling. Can Uganda Law Society be involved in that process such that you're part of this lawyer's professional life? You're part of this lawyer's professional journey. At least they can trace back their enrollment to the assistance of Law Society. And I've already proposed a measure that we can undertake. I've communicated to the members before that the function of compiling the compliance list of advocates that have met the minimum 20 CLE hours lies with Law Council. But because of the huge numbers of advocates and the limited human resource at the Law Council, Uganda Law Society assists Law Council in compiling that list. can we implement the same thing towards issuing certificates of eligibility to enroll, such that we assist the Law Council in dealing with the backlog of advocates? Then 2, for new entrants, people who have just been entered on the role of advocates, when they are joining the Law Society, it does not matter if they are joining in September, because enrollments happen all throughout the year. If an advocate enrolls in September, why would you require that new advocate that has not been working to pay you the full annual subscription fees? My view is different. And I'm saying, can we prorate the amount to be paid by the member to the number of months left in the calendar year? Because in an event, in the next year, they're going to pay you the full amount. Not the advocate who is working in a law firm. Ladies and gentlemen, as Uganda Law Society, we cannot legislate on, or we cannot legislate on how much you should earn as an advocate, because those are issues way broader than the Uganda Law Society. What we can do, I propose we can have guidelines for payment that can assist advocates in negotiating for payment from law firms. They do not have the force of law, but they can assist you as you negotiate.
There was the question on the issue of female lawyers.
Female lawyers. Now, there is no place for sexual harassment within Uganda Law Society. Uganda Law Society must be a safe haven for all those lawyers, for all those female lawyers that are assaulted by any member of the profession or any member of the public. Uganda Law Society, number 1, there is a sexual harassment policy, but there is no law firm in this country with the ULS sexual harassment policy. It needs to be circulated to all the members. Number 2, we must create a safe space for members of the Uganda Law Society, the female lawyers, to come and report any matter of sexual harassment by another lawyer. And we shall take it up either as an institution or provide or be on watching brief on behalf of the victim. There shouldn't be a place for sexual harassment. There is no place for sexual harassment. And under my presidency, that will be a priority for me. All women, all female lawyers must be placed, and Uganda Law Society should be a home for all sexual harassment victims. And to that member who harasses women sexually or in any way, we need to discipline him, we need to isolate him, and bring him to justice. Such a member has no place in our society, and we need to call him out, whoever it is.
Thank you very much. And since you have the mic, I'd like you to hold on to it. One final question in that category, and that has to do with the professional development of the ULS members. What is your vision for enhancing the professional development of ULS members, particularly those in remote areas? How would you ensure that all members have access to opportunities for growth and advancement in their legal careers? You have 2.5 minutes for that, and then you'll hand over the mic to Mr. Atkunde.
Yes, thank you. Professional legal education. First of all, we have the Advocates Continuing Legal Education Regulations. They require every member of Uganda Law Society to achieve a minimum of 20 CLE hours before they can be granted a practicing certificate for the next year. However, what is the content of the CLEs they are receiving? We need to work on the CLEs such that they respond to the demands of the market, such that we prepare our lawyers for the needs that are being demanded for by the paying clients. Number 2, upcountry lawyers. For every CLE event happening in Law Society, it must have an online option of attendance. It must be a hybrid CLE. Every CLE event must be hybrid. The place for only physical attendance are over. The days are over for physical attendance. Every CLE event must be a hybrid, such that even the lawyers who are up country can access the program. That is my view.
Mr. Tukunda? Maximizing opportunities for, enhancing professional development for ULS members, particularly those in remote areas.
Thank you. I have been campaigning. Recently, I was in Bushenyi and Barara, and tonight I will be in Jinja. I think it is high time we decentralized all the services of Uganda Law Society, because the regions currently have got very many members of the society. In Mbara alone, we have around 100 members. So the Western region has more than 300 advocates. And in most cases, we do not cater for their needs as our members. And I have an idea. Number one, I will make sure that we establish an institute of professional studies of the Uganda Law Society, so that members can access legal education under this institute and they attend certified courses, because most of the investors do not utilize our advocates in regions because of qualifications. So under this institute, we should be able to provide them with trainings at a cheaper cost. Then we have done deliberate continuing legal education regions, but this time I will also ensure that we have regional annual law conferences, so that we can have the Apex Law Conference in Kampala. I will also ensure that we negotiate with stakeholders in regions. It's always, very troubling to find that a company, for example, operating in Karamoja is seeking services of an advocate in Kampala, because the local governments do not enforce local content in the contracts with these companies. We shall engage stakeholders. I know you cannot force a company to hire services of an advocate, but we shall emphasize engagement. We have done it before. We shall continue to do it. Then, most importantly, I will make sure that we provide them a platform to compete for positions. It's so rare to hear an upcountry practitioner being appointed, a judge, for example. And in most cases, they appoint, for example, judges or magistrates and send them to places where they are not comfortable, when we have legal practitioners in these places. So we shall provide them a platform so that we can advocate for their opportunities in appointments in positions in the government and other parastatals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tukunda. The debate is shortly coming to a close. We will take a couple of questions from the audience. We see questions coming through, but before we get to that, Oscar, would like to turn to you to handle the issues that are financial and administrative oversight in nature. Then we can take questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruxana. Thank you, gentlemen, for the performances. From the responses, perhaps it's evidence that people are engaged in the debate. And as I told you earlier, the recording is available. So, on financial and administrative oversight, the debate questions are: 1, financial management and administrative oversight and critical aspects of the ULS presidency. What systems or processes would you implement to ensure transparency, prevent misuse of resources, and promote fiscal responsibility within ULA? You have 3 minutes for this question, Mr. Atikun.
I think it will be Mr. Kenneth Kipalu. I'll repeat the question for clarity. Financial management and administrative oversight are critical aspects of the ULS presidency. What systems or processes would you implement to ensure transparency, prevent misuse of resources, and promote fiscal responsibility within the Uganda Law Society? You have 3 minutes.
Yes. Thank you very much. What are the sources of finance for Uganda Law Society? What are the sources of finance for the Uganda Law Society? You have subscriptions by members 2, you have donor funds, people who are sponsoring the activities of Uganda Law Society. 3, for every event we organize, we have sponsors and we have people who may pay the Uganda Law Society just to advertise some of their programs. Those are the major sources of finance for the Uganda Law Society. How do we account? Number 1, personally, I do not think the president should be a principal signatory to all accounts of Uganda Law Society. I do not believe he should be. I believe I cannot provide oversight when I am at the same time engaged in the disbursement of funds. I believe the CEO needs to be fully in control of the society's funds, and then I provide oversight with the use of the auditors. However, that is not yet in place. So what would be the tools you use? Number 1, we must have a budget. What are the activities that Uganda Law Society plans to undertake next year? What is our financial forecast? How much money do we think we are going to collect? How do we intend to utilize it? Submit it before the members. Let the members be informed of what is happening at every stage of the process. Let council be involved in the decision making. As an individual, do not take decisions on your own as president and account later. It is a decision that must be taken by council. For operational demands, the CEO can take care of that responsibility. So 1, have a budget that is submitted to the membership and is implemented. 2, auditors who must be changed every 2 or every 3 years. Auditors that must be always changed.
Mr. Kipalu, we run out of time. Mr. Chikunda?
Thank you very much. Financial management and transparency is key for development of every organization, because the moment finances are not properly managed, an institution cannot develop. Now, most of the mechanisms at Uganda Law Society for financial management and transparency are in place. The issue is on their application. This is mainly because of the capacity of the secretariat. So when I become the president, I will ensure that I build the capacity of the secretariat and ensure that financial transparency and reporting is adhered to. I know, for example, we do the budgeting. In my manifesto, I have an idea of involving the stakeholders who are the members in the budgeting process. We shall have a budget committee so that it can work with the secretariat in making the budget for the Uganda Law Society. We already have internal controls and risk management systems, but I will also ensure that we have the modern financial management system in place at the secretariat. I will ensure that we comply with the financial reporting standards and also ensure that there is regular reporting. In most cases, members are not much informed on the processes, so I will also ensure that we have the transparency mechanism of reporting these financial, the financials of the Uganda Law Society. But also, I have observed that whenever we have the annual general meetings, members do not pay key attention to the audit reports presented and the budgets. One of the colleagues was making me laugh that they usually prefer being at the beach, having fun, than listening to the reports and attending to the budget. So we shall deliberately also have CLE trainings on financials so that members can start enjoying these sessions on budgeting and the budgeting and audit report representation. Because even if members don't pick interest in finances, it means that they also want effectively manage the finances of their law firms. Besides the council and the president playing this oversight role, the members should be able to partake in these processes and play an oversight role over the council and the secretariat. So I will ensure that we put up in place mechanisms, ensure that there is transparency and proper reporting. Thank you.
Mr. Atukunda, I will not tell you where I am because you don't like beaches. But Mr. Kipalu, let me allow you 1 minute to respond to Mr. before you.
Sorry, Oscar, you'd like to give him 1 minute to respond?
If he has a response to Mr. Atukunda.
Would you like to make a response to Mr. Atukunda's submission, Mr. Kipalu? No, he's going to pass on this one, Oscar.
He's going to pass on that one, okay. Yeah. So let's head to the second. Let's head to the second question. How will ULS maximize available opportunities to mobilize resources needed to complete major projects like the ULS House, legal aid project, and any others, and also ensure self-sustenance? And that's 3 minutes as well. Mr. Kipalu.
Yes. Thank you so much. Since 1956, our major source of financing has been subscription fees from the members. I think we need to seriously think of ways in which we can supplement our incomes rather than through subscriptions and donor funds. It's very critical. And initiatives such as the ULS Institute are key. How are we going to complete this house? And this is why I was talking about engagement, collaboration being key. We are all aware of the pledge which was made by the president of this country towards completion of that house. Can we approach the president to have that money received? And how are we going to do it? Through engaging with some of our colleagues that can help us to get this donation from the president. Number two, there is also an amount we agreed to pay at last year's AGM. Members have paid that money this year, and at this AGM, we might be deciding whether to pay that money even next year, such that we complete the house. That's a decision members will have to take. Legal aid project. How shall we make it self-sustainable? I spoke of the legal aid bill which has been in Parliament since 2012. I think under that bill, government was going to provide financing for legal aid. Can we push for the passing of that act? And how are we going to push for the passing of that act? We must collaborate with the Attorney General to ensure that these things move. Self-sustenance has been key to central. Members' subscription fees are not enough to sustain our organization. We must think of innovative ways, and setting up a ULS Institute is critical. I think we need to think about putting up an arbitration center. We have an arbitration center run by ICAMEC. There is CADA. ULS, Uganda Law Society, is the best placed institute to have an arbitration center. That will bring in some financing to the society. Those are some of the things I believe we need to think about to complete the house, to make legal aid more sustainable, and even ULS to supplement on some of its incomes.
Mr. Atukunda would like to address himself to that matter. Please take 3 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank our members who have contributed to the construction of the Uganda Law Society House. As I speak, 2 floors are finished, and the Secretariat will be entering this month. And I am very optimistic that if I'm elected the president, by the end of next year, we should be completing our house because members have given us funds. URS house finances are affecting our finances in a way that we had to put a compulsory contribution besides annual subscription. We had also to raise the fee for continuing legal education because we needed this money. We knew that if we do not get the funds and complete the house soon, the cost of completing it would go higher. But I'm very optimistic that in the next 1 year we should be able to complete our house. But in terms of resource mobilization, as I earlier mentioned, we must recruit a resources mobilization officer who can write project proposals and engage the stakeholders so that we can get some finances. Number 2, through the Institute of Professional Studies and Development, we shall be able to extend trainings to institutions like the local governments, to institutions like central government, and collect some more money out of these trainings, which can be used for our projects. Also, we intend to have fundraising campaigns. I want to thank members who have voluntarily contributed to URS House. We shall continue with these campaigns and ensure that we finish our projects. For the lab project and pro bono, we have already in mind the different sponsors we shall engage to ensure that we raise resources and we stop straining the members with collecting monies from them for the completion of these projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Atkunda. Thank you so much, Mr. Kipala. I hope my pronunciation of names is excellent. I have these problems when people say the same way, I'm so clear. But you put up a good debate. You have seemed knowledgeable. The audience online, I'd like to thank you for the discipline. At the beginning, they did worry that we would have some rowdiness, and it didn't happen. So I applaud you, and your comments will be stored, and the contestants will have an opportunity to look at them. The Electoral Commission of the Uganda Law Society, thanks for organizing debates. Thank you very much. The candidates done well. At some point, the Electoral Commission will explain where the third candidate is. Rukshan and I have been service providers, even though some people asked us about that. So on behalf of the moderating team, I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you, thank you. Back to you, Rukshan.
Thank you, Oscar. And as Oscar retires, like we mentioned, he's in a different part of the world, so it's rather late where he is. But the debate is coming to a fast close, and we'd just like to take a couple of comments and questions that came through the online chat. I'll start with something from Christine Tumuhaire. I've always wanted to know from the ULS leadership to give a proper accountability of the funds paid by all members of the legal profession, and yet we still say we need donor funds. Can someone break it down for us? That's not a question to the prospectives. Maybe if one of them gets into office, that question will be put to them at the appropriate time. And that also may not necessarily be the role of the president. Let me quickly scroll through, and just a number of these are really comments, not questions, so just give me a chance to scroll through. Isaac, this is not a question, it's just a comment that you have had a chance that most of us haven't had to address some of these issues, like the CLE points, young lawyers, etc., etc. Just a comment. There's a question for No, this is not a question, this is a comment. Please bear with me as I scroll through. I'm actually looking for tangible questions, not comments. Questions to our contestants. The issue, no, that's not. What criteria will be used to show that you did not use, okay, let me take a step back. The issue of penalizing a member who didn't use the PC for the year and making them pay for a previous year, what criteria will be used to show that you didn't use your PC? So there's an issue around penalizing a member who didn't use. I don't think this question is actually appropriate for you guys. Let me just scroll. Give me a few minutes. Okay. Every previous Law Society president contestant in the past, going back, has been talking about CLE payments by young lawyers, but it has never been implemented. How sure are we in regards to the false promises? So how sure are we, or how sure are your prospective members that you guys will actually deliver on this issue of CLE payments? Who would like to take that first? Mr. Kipalo, you'd like to take it first?
Thank you. I think when I was chairperson Young Lawyers Committee, and I take pride in this, we organized a Young Lawyers Symposium that cost 50,000 shillings. It was a 2-day event. It was at a hotel in Kampala, and it attracted 10 CLE points. I think it's the most affordable symposium we've ever held at Law Society that attracted 10 CLE points. However, even during my time at Law Council Committee on Legal Education and Training, we've managed to reduce the fees payable by members for NCLE event. For physical attendance, we have capped physical attendance to 250,000 shillings. For online attendance, we have capped it at 150,000 shillings per day. Now, if you look at the amounts that were being charged previously, you will notice that that is a significant improvement. We cannot bring the bar any lower than that, because sometimes the faculty of staff that is brought in to teach or offer knowledge on any subject, sometimes they require to be paid. Sometimes the venue that is hosting the symposium may require payment. And we believe that is a fair amount. But what we can do, on top of capping the fees to be charged by CLE service providers, we must provide for free CLE programs. Free CLE programs that must accumulate to 20 CLE hours. So the free CLE programs in a calendar year must be able to accumulate to 20 CLE hours, such that advocates who cannot pay can at least attend the free lessons and be able to obtain the minimum CLEs necessary for them to get their practicing certificates for the next year.
Yes, Mr. Tukunda.
Thank you. Now, about CLE payments for the young lawyers, the council have been serving on reduced the cost of CLE trainings for the young lawyers. So whenever we have a training, the young lawyers do not pay the same amount as the senior lawyers. But still, the charge which is there is slightly a bit high. And I mentioned that because we need to complete URS house, we had to use these trainings as a way of mobilizing resources. But now, since 2 floors are complete and the secretariat is shifting to the house, it means the cost of rent is going to be removed. So we should be able to reduce further the cost of trainings. But also have pledged that we shall ensure that we have at least 30 free CLE points in a calendar year for purposes of ensuring that every member is able to comply. Then maybe I would request my colleague Kenneth speak to the policy by the Law Council to remove remedials, because a member has raised the issue of not using a PC in the calendar year, and when it is time for renewal, a member is penalized. Now, Law Council removed remedials, so the moment you don't attend CLE trainings, the penalty is put. So maybe Councillor Kenneth will speak to that. Then also, someone said, I have had a chance of implementing these ideas. Colleagues, some of the programs are long-term. There are those which are short-term. As a council, we have implemented the short-term programs we had. We are now on long-term programs. So it is unfair to say that we have not implemented these programs. You cannot implement all programs in 1 year of council or even in 2 years. For example, the Institute of Professional Studies, if established this year, for it to develop and it begins making real money, takes like 3 years. But what is important, as a leader, you lay a foundation. For example, I would want to thank the past councils. There was a council by Simon Peter Chinobe, senior council. It started the project of Yore's house. Then the project was implemented by the council of senior council Fiona Wall. Now the outgoing council, led by senior council Bernard Owundo, has finished 2 floors. If I become the president, my council pledges to finish the Yore's house. So some of the projects are ongoing projects that you cannot complete them during your term of office because the term of office is extremely short. Thank you.
Mr. Otukunda. Mr. Chipalo?
The issue of remedios. It is not true that the Law Council did die with remedios. We have advocates continuing legal education regulations. Every advocate, if you before you renew your practicing certificate, you must demonstrate that you've accumulated a minimum of 20 CLE hours in a calendar year. But we recognize that it may happen that you are not able to accumulate the minimum 20 CLE. And what are the options available to an advocate who fails to accumulate the minimum 20 CLE hours? Number 1, you can apply for exemption. Under what circumstances may you be exempted from the CLE hours? Number 1, if you've been in public service. 2, those ones are exempted. Number 2, if you are a newly enrolled advocate. If you are newly enrolled, you can be exempted. Number 2, you can apply for waiver. Under what circumstances may your CLE hours requirement be waived? If, let's say, for example, you can demonstrate that you have been sick, or if you've been out of the country attending to a different program, the CLE requirement may be waived. 3, you may apply for remedios. And under what circumstances may remedios be granted? You have been in Uganda, but for one reason or another, you were unable to score the 20 minimum CLE hours. In those circumstances, you apply for remedios at the Law Council Committee of Legal Education and Training. The Law Council Committee on Legal Education and Training cannot give blanket remedios. We have done it before. We did it in 2021 because of COVID. Because of COVID, many members did not meet the minimum CLE hours, so we gave blanket remedios to Law Society, which conducted them. But subsequently, if you have not met the minimum CLE hours and you're unable to renew your practicing certificate, the process is you apply to Law Council to allow you to do remedios to score the minimum requirement. And all the applications we have received this year for remedios have been granted. because we believe that shouldn't stand in the way of one's professional practice. If one is willing to do the remedios, we always give them.
Thank you, Mr. Kenneth Chipalo. I got the pronunciation right, finally. Never too late. Thank you so much. So the debate has come.
Maybe I would want to request my colleague Kenneth, before he leaves Clet, advocates are being inconvenienced by the process of applying for remedials, because in most cases when they apply, they need to get a response. When they come to us, council, we do not have clear answers. So kindly, if you could request law council, maybe for the first 2-3 months in a calendar year, to allow remedials, because sometimes a member unknowingly fails to accumulate 20 points, but the process of applying to law council and then waiting for a response puts a member on pressure, and as the society, we contain this pressure. So kindly engage law council and think about remedials. Thank you.
Please hold on to the mic, because we would like you to make your closing statements. I think it has been a long several hours. A lot of things have been articulated over the last several hours. But now, as we close this debate, you have a chance to make your closing statement in 2 minutes.
Thank you, colleagues, for listening to us. On the 28th of September 2024, we have an opportunity to determine the Uganda law society we want. I stand for a progressive, independent bar association. I say progressive because a foundation was laid from which we can build. I say independent because I will be independent as a president, and I will ensure that the council is independent in its decision making. One of the obligations of the president is to ensure that the professional values and ethics are maintained, because the public judges us as advocates by how we conduct our business. I am fully aware that the business environment out there is not the best one. Law firms are struggling. The young lawyers have issues. Our female advocates have got issues which need redress. All this requires leadership. It requires experience as a leader. It requires a leader who listens, who engages. And my promise is, if I become your president, I will engage you. I will listen to you. I will pick your ideas, and we walk the journey together to ensure that we have a progressive, independent bar association. Come 28th September 2024, kindly vote for Atkunda Isa. Thank you. God bless you.
Before you hand over the mic, for avoidance of doubt, in bullet form, what are the top 3 issues you're going to tackle if you're elected? Bullet form.
Number 1, rule of law and access to justice. Number 2, young lawyers. Number 3, not young, members' affairs, young lawyers, female lawyers, and the senior lawyers. Number 3, professional development of our membership, because we cannot make business unless we have the qualifications as members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chipalo, your closing statement in 2 minutes, and you can bundle it with the top 3 issues you'd like to tackle if you're elected as the president.
Members of Uganda Law Society, what we learned from Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom is that the journey of justice. Okay, sorry about that. Members of Uganda Law Society, what we learned from Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom is that the fight for justice is not always by force. You must be ready and willing to sit down and negotiate. Where need be, we shall fight for our values, but we shall also sit down and engage with the relevant stakeholders. That is how we champion justice. That is how we champion the rule of law. We have had this society since 1956. This is not the time to break it. This is not the time to polarize it. This is the time for us to come together as lawyers such that we can advance the causes that we believe in. The rule of law, the quality of our legal education, our members' welfare, and the structure, the governance structure of our society. Those are the pillars of my campaign. Let us elect sober leadership, and I am that sober leader. I have served you before. I have served you as Chair Young Lawyers Committee. I have served you as a representative at the Law Council Committee on Legal Education and Training, and I am here to serve again as President, Uganda Law Society. Entrust me with your mandate. We shall work together. I am not a savior. I am here to work with you. A vote for Kenneth Chipalu is a vote in yourself, is a vote for one Uganda Law Society that can advance for our shared values, for a better society and for a better Uganda. Vote Kenneth Chipalu on the 28th September 2024. I know it is a Saturday, but please turn up and cast your vote. It counts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth Chipalu. Thank you, Mr. Isaac Atukunda. And thank you everyone that has joined the debate today. You have dedicated your time. You have listened to 2 out of the 3 candidates. You have had them articulate their visions. You've had them articulate their plans for the Uganda Law Society. And now on the 28th of this month, you get to exercise your right to vote for the leader that you believe will drive the society ahead, not just for the sake of the society, but for the entire country as well. Just make sure that you exercise your right wisely and make the right choice. It's been an absolute honor for me, Rukshana Chitaka, and Oscar Semoya Musoke to facilitate this discussion and this debate. We'd like to thank the ULS Elections Committee for entrusting us with this uphill task. And I pray and hope and believe that we have done what we were tasked to do adequately. And at this point in time, I'd just like to invite the chairman, ULS Elections Committee, to officially adjourn the session. Over to you, Mr. Moses Mwase.
Yeah, colleagues, I think we should agree that we've had excellent moderation by Rukshana and Oscar. So once again, I would like to request that you give them some online kind of round of applause. We thank you, Rukshana. We thank you, Oscar, for taking time to ensure that you enable us fulfill this very important duty of getting members, getting our presidential candidates to present their case for their presidential aspirations to members of the Uganda Law Society who have been online. We don't want to stretch this out any longer, but perhaps we want to make one announcement for the benefit of members. First of all, we want to recognize that we've had close to 3,000 people on X, which I think is a new record for us as a society, and over 350 people on Zoom. So thank you for turning up in these very large and impressive numbers. But for the announcement, we have noticed that there's been some kind of confusion with respect to registering, with respect to paying membership fees for 2024 that would make our members eligible to be on the voters' roll. So in order to strike a balance, we have, first of all, there's a requirement that we, the elections committee, display an electoral roll at least 2 days before the election date. And we would like to increase voter participation. So we have therefore resolved to extend the period within which our members can pay membership fees so that it can facilitate their inclusion on the electoral roll. So all ULS members that are not yet paid up for 2024, we have provided until Monday, the 23rd of 2024, for you to pay. After Monday, the electoral roll will be compiled on Tuesday, the 24th of September. We will then have it displayed on Wednesday, the 25th, and Thursday, the 26th. Any issues that may arise requiring rectification will be addressed on Friday, the 27th of September, in time for the vote on Saturday, the 28th of September. So we hope you can bear with us. We noticed that some lawyers have started writing to us, and we hope also that this announcement clarifies the issue of payment so that members can make it on the voters' roll. That said, we want to thank you once again for making time and for being very participatory. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Isaac Atukunda, Mr. Kenneth Kipalu. We couldn't have the benefit of the third candidate. And again, for the members that were online and those that are eligible to vote, we trust that you've been able to hear from them and that this should help you to make a good choice. So thank you, and with those few words, would like to adjourn. God bless you all, and have a great weekend.